Have you ever wondered how someone like Johnny Depp can be both a mystery and yet feel so familiar at the same time? It's strange, isn't it? One moment he's Captain Jack Sparrow, a pirate who wobbles across the deck with a grin and a secret, a character that has become a part of cinema history. And the next he's sitting in a quiet corner, maybe sketching with a paintbrush in his hand, or strumming chords on his guitar while humming something only he can hear. That paradox is exactly what makes him so compelling. It's what keeps people talking about him year after year through all the ups and downs, refined, real, endlessly charming. These aren't just words, they're the pieces that make up Johnny Depp, seen in ways most people overlook. And maybe that's why the fascination never fades. For decades now, the world has followed him, through red carpets, blockbuster premieres, explosive headlines, and courtroom drama. His life has been messy, complicated, and sometimes brutally exposed. But even then, fans didn't walk away. Why? Because he isn't just another star trying to be polished and perfect. He's layered, flawed, human. And when you strip away the noise of the media and the larger-than-life characters he's played, you find someone who is raw, thoughtful, and deeply artistic in ways Hollywood rarely allows us to see. Think about it. How often do we see Johnny Depp outside of his movies or the chaos of the headlines? Almost never. And yet when those rare glimpses appear, whether it's a small interview moment, a fan recording from backstage, or a casual snapshot of him painting, they reveal something very different, something quieter, something grounded, and that's the Johnny Depp most people don't really know. When people describe him as refined, it's not about wearing the sharpest suits or rehearsing polished lines for talk shows. It's something deeper. It's in the way he carries himself, the way he pauses before speaking, the way he listens to people without rushing. Watch him in interviews and you'll notice he's not trying to dominate the conversation or perform. He sits, he thinks, and he takes his time with words. That kind of presence is magnetic because it feels genuine. It makes you want to lean closer, as though you might hear something he isn't saying out loud. That's refinement. Not surface polish, but a quiet confidence and patience that draws people in without him even trying. And then there's the part that feels the most rare of all, the realness. Because in today's celebrity world, real is almost impossible to find. Most stars are carefully managed by teams who script their words, dress them up for appearances, and craft an image that feels flawless. But Johnny Depp has never fit into that box. He doesn't pretend to be untouchable. He doesn't erase his struggles. He has stumbled, sometimes publicly, sometimes painfully. He's been through heartbreaks, financial messes, failed relationships, lawsuits, and some of the most talked-about trials in recent memory. And yet, through it all, he never retreated into silence forever. He showed up, even when the spotlight burned the brightest. And maybe that's what makes him feel so human to people watching, because he's not trying to be perfect. He's showing us that life is messy and you can still move through it with grace, even if it's imperfect. And we can't forget the charm, that unshakable charisma that doesn't feel rehearsed or staged. It's in the little things, like the way he smiles at fans, the way he leans down to listen instead of brushing people off, the way he cracks a quiet joke when the world least expects it. Watch him in fan videos and you'll see it immediately. He doesn't rush through crowds the way some celebrities do. He stops, he looks people in the eye, he signs autographs with care. Sometimes he whispers a small thank you or tells someone they matter, and those words stick with people for the rest of their lives. That kind of charm can't be faked. It's not a publicity stunt, it's simply who he is. But here's what most people miss. Johnny Depp is not just an actor. Acting is only one corner of his creativity. At heart, he's an artist. When the cameras aren't rolling, he spends hours painting. His portraits aren't just random brushstrokes, they're deeply personal. He paints people who've impacted him, people who inspire him, people who carry stories he wants to freeze in time. And then there's the music. Long before Hollywood made him a household name, music was his first love. He's played guitar since he was young, and even now he tours, records, and collaborates with other musicians. Not because he has to, not because it adds to his fame, but because music is where he feels most free. These are the sides of Johnny Depp that the tabloids don't talk about. These are the moments that reveal who he really is, outside of the spotlight. And then, of course, there are his words. Have you noticed how Johnny speaks in a way that almost feels like poetry? He doesn't rush through sentences, he doesn't give generic answers. Instead, he shares thoughts that sound like they've come from experience, from pain, from reflection. He'll say things about love, about loss, about dreams that feel both personal and universal. And that's why people hold on to them. Fans don't just quote his movie lines, they quote Johnny himself. They write his words on posters, they share them online, they repeat them to remind themselves of something true. Because when Johnny speaks, he doesn't sound like a polished celebrity. He sounds like a man who has lived through things and come out wiser, even if scarred. The question now is, what comes next for him? After all the chaos, all the trials, all the attention, what does Johnny Depp want? Insiders believe he's carving out a new chapter, one that's not about pleasing Hollywood or chasing box office numbers. One that's more about expression, art, music, and telling stories that matter to him. Maybe it'll be a film that feels personal. Maybe it'll be a series of paintings shown to the public. Maybe it'll be a new music project that lets him share his heart in another way. Whatever it is, one thing's for sure. It'll happen on his terms. That's who he is. He doesn't play by the rules of Hollywood. He makes his own path, and when he reveals it, it won't just be news. It'll be unforgettable. And that's the beauty of following Johnny Depp. It's never just about the movies. It's never just about the characters he's given us. It's about the layers beneath all that. It's about the man who has weathered storms, who has carried the weight of fame, who has endured some of the most public struggles imaginable, and yet still chooses to create, still chooses to connect, still chooses to stand in front of the world, even when that world has tried, again and again, to pull him apart. That's the Johnny Depp people don't always see, and maybe, just maybe, that's the one worth paying the most attention to, because when you look closely, his story is not only the story of a Hollywood star. It's the story of a human being who, despite everything, keeps chasing the art, the music, the meaning. Think back to the very beginning, before the fame, before the red carpets, before the name Johnny Depp meant anything in the industry. He wasn't even planning to be an actor. He wanted to be a musician. Music was his first love. As a teenager, he dropped out of school and started chasing it with nothing but a guitar and a dream. He played in bands, toured, slept in cars, struggled to pay bills. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't easy, but it was real. That raw hunger to create something, to connect through art, has never left him, even when Hollywood swept him into its arms and turned him into a superstar. At his core, he remained that same young man who just wanted to express something. That's what people forget when they only focus on the scandals or the headlines. As his career took off, he didn't take the easy road. He didn't just accept every big role that would make him money. He made choices that confused Hollywood, but thrilled fans. Think about it. Instead of sticking to safe leading man roles, he sought out characters that were odd, broken, complicated, and often misunderstood. Edward Scissorhands, Ichabod Crane, Gilbert Grape, Raoul Duke, and of course, Jack Sparrow. None of these characters were obvious choices, but that's exactly what made them unforgettable. He wasn't trying to be perfect. He was trying to be interesting. He was trying to tell stories that made people feel something. And that's why, even now, his characters live on long after the credits roll. But outside of those roles, life wasn't as magical. Fame came with a price. He became one of the most recognizable faces in the world, but that also meant his private life was never truly his own. Every mistake, every heartbreak, every flaw was amplified, dissected, and sometimes twisted into something else entirely. It would have been easy to disappear, to retreat into silence and let the world forget. Many people in his place might have chosen that, But Johnny didn't. He stayed. He kept creating. He kept showing up for fans, even when his reputation was being dragged through the mud. And that resilience, that decision to remain visible and human, says more about him than any headline ever could. Fans often talk about the way he interacts with them, and those stories say everything. Unlike many celebrities who rush past crowds with bodyguards clearing the way, Johnny lingers. He kneels down to speak with children. He hugs people who wait hours just to see him. He listens to their stories, sometimes for longer than anyone expects. And those moments don't just disappear. They stick. They become memories that fans carry with them for life. One fan once said that when she met him, he told her, "You matter." Just 2 words, but they were enough to change how she saw herself. That's the power of authenticity. It doesn't need grand speeches. It just needs sincerity. And then there's his artistry beyond the screen. His paintings are now celebrated and even sold to collectors, but for years they were private. He painted portraits of people who mattered to him. Friends, idols, people who inspired him. They weren't just pretty pictures, they were tributes, expressions of love and admiration. His music, too, was never about fame or charts. It was about collaboration, about expression. Whether touring with his band or playing with legends, he returned to music again and again because it grounded him. It reminded him of who he was before Hollywood, before the chaos. What makes Johnny Depp endlessly fascinating is not perfection, but imperfection. He's been messy, he's been criticized, he's made mistakes, he's admitted to pain, to struggles, to regrets, and yet he hasn't let those define him completely. Instead, he uses them as fuel, turning pain into art, heartbreak into songs, struggles into stories. That's what makes him feel so human. Because in a world where celebrities often hide behind carefully managed images, Johnny shows us the cracks. And in those cracks, we find the most beauty. There's also something timeless about him. Watch him in an interview today, and he speaks with the same quiet thoughtfulness he did decades ago. Fame hasn't hardened him. If anything, it has softened him in some ways. He pauses, he reflects, he doesn't rush to impress. His words feel like they come from experience, like they've been lived in before being spoken. He'll talk about the cost of dreams, about the meaning of love, about the chaos of life in ways that stay with you. That's why his quotes spread like wildfire, because they don't sound rehearsed, they sound real. And now, after everything he's endured, people wonder what's next. What does Johnny Depp want in this new chapter of his life? Insiders whisper that he's stepping into projects that are closer to his heart. Less Hollywood noise, more passion. It might be another film, but one that matters to him, not just to studios. It might be an art exhibition where his paintings tell stories words can't capture. It might be music where his guitar and voice carry emotions no performance could fake. Whatever it is, one thing is certain, it will be on his own terms. Because if there's one thing Johnny Depp has proven, it's that he doesn't play by Hollywood's rules. He writes his own. That's what makes him endlessly compelling. He's not just an actor, not just an artist, not just a celebrity. He's all of those things and more, tied together by one thread, authenticity. And in a world obsessed with polish and filters, that's rare. That's refreshing. That's why fans stay loyal, why they defend him, why they see themselves in him. Because he reminds us that it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to stumble. It's okay to be real. So when we look at Johnny Depp, what do we really see? Do we see the actor who gave us unforgettable characters? Do we see the artist who pours himself into paint and canvas? Do we see the musician who loses himself in sound? Or do we see the man behind it all, the one who has endured storms, carried scars, and still chooses connection over perfection? Maybe it's all of those things. Maybe that's why he continues to captivate. Because Johnny Depp is not one thing, he's many, he's layered, complex, endlessly fascinating. And no matter how much the world thinks it knows him, there will always be more to discover. And maybe that's the greatest part of all, that even after decades of fame, millions of fans, countless headlines, Johnny Depp remains something we can't quite pin down. He's refined, real, endlessly charming, but more than that, he's human. And in that humanity, we see a reflection of ourselves, the struggles, the flaws, the resilience, and the art we create along the way. And that's what makes following his story so powerful. Because it's not just about him, it's about all of us. So think about this. Which version of Johnny Depp resonates with you the most? The actor who gave us Jack Sparrow, Edward Scissorhands, and countless unforgettable roles. The artist who paints in solitude, creating pieces that capture the essence of people he admires? The musician who loses himself in melodies and rhythms? Or the philosopher, the man who shares words that remind us it's okay to be flawed, it's okay to stumble, and it's okay to be real? The truth is, every side of him matters. Every side of him tells part of the story, and that's what makes him endlessly fascinating. And maybe, just maybe, that's why people never stop talking about him. Because Johnny Depp reminds us of something we all need to hear, that perfection isn't the goal. Connection is, authenticity is. Living with your art, your flaws, and your truth, that's the goal. And in a world that's obsessed with filters and perfection, that feels refreshing. That feels rare. So let me ask you, what side of Johnny Depp speaks to you the most? Share your thoughts, because these stories aren't just about him. They're about us too. They're about the parts of ourselves that we see reflected in someone else. And if this made you see him in a different light, if it gave you a new perspective on who Johnny Depp really is, consider giving this a like, sharing it with someone who also admires him, and subscribing for more stories like this. Because there's so much more to explore, so many more sides of people we think we already know, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.